benefits. And
Like it makes it tough for everyone involved.
They feel like people.
Our voices keep our
best foot forward.
All right. Welcome back, everyone, to Life After Foster Care, episode number 8, the podcast where we talk about what happens after exiting the system. We talk about real stories, real struggles, the tools we need to thrive. I'm your host, Chelsea Reynoso, and here with me today to talk about today's topic, from surviving to connecting, social skills nobody taught us, is Indie Painter. And did I say that correctly? Indie Painter.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So thank you for joining me today. Like I mentioned, everyone, today we're diving into something that's often overlooked, right? Social skills. Things like communication, conflict resolution, vulnerability, all of those very unspoken skills that many of us just didn't learn because we didn't have consistent models growing up. So we're gonna chat, or whatever reason, right? It could be inconsistent models. You grew up in a toxic environment, many reasons, right? So we're gonna chat about how we can build those skills now, even if we're starting from scratch, right? Like, let's say you just didn't have those skills before, but now you're like, okay, I'm older. I want these skills. I need these skills. Where do I start? Like, who else would understand me? This is where you go, this podcast. I'm so excited to welcome today's guest, Indie Painter, a former foster youth who has navigated the journey of growing the skills that I just talked about. So thank you for being here, Indie.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I feel like this is very important, and I'm very glad to be the one to speak about it.
Awesome. I'm so excited. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I think let's start with the basics. Many of us grew up in a system that often didn't offer the kind of consistent role models, like I said earlier, or support when it came to things like communication or handling conflict, right? Can you share a little bit about your experience and what it was like for you growing up dealing with, communication and handling conflict?
Yeah, of course. So I was in foster care 3 separate times, my last time being from age 11 till age 21. And during this time, I feel like I actually didn't become very social until I was way into my adulthood. I just felt like during my time in care, there was nobody I could relate to, look up to. There was nobody that was very positive. And so it became something where I was very much alone and in my head a lot, and I didn't really have any supports at that time. And so I remember at school I was always the kid that ate alone, sat by myself. And back then I was very comfortable with that. I liked just having some own me time because I never got that in an actual home. But as I got older, I realized just how important it was to have social skills, to have friends, and to be around people.
No, definitely, definitely. I agree. And do you have any like examples of some of those conflict resolutions that come to mind? Like any specific moments that really like impacted you and you were like, I wish I could have done this differently, like whether in your foster homes or school or anywhere. Do you have examples of that?
Yeah, I think I have way too many to count. But there was one specific one that always, I guess, stood out to me. I remember I had so many classmates my senior year talking about movements that was going on or talking about things they've seen on the news. And I remember that I just didn't have that social skill and I didn't know about the information. So that made me feel even more isolated because what were they talking about? Can I relate? Do I agree? Can I talk to someone about this? And it was very just an isolating moment for me, and it was just something so simple. And then I would be in theater class or something and I would want to do it so bad, but I was just so into myself and my own head that I could never really get the nerve to go out there and try to make friends. And so there was quite a few moments that made me realize just how important this skill was going to be later on, and I'm really glad that I started to work on it.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I think like I think a lot of people share that at some point in their lives, right? They're like, should I jump into this conversation? Should I not? What if I say the wrong thing? What if I don't even know what they're talking about? It's very intimidating, right? Like it really is, especially in school, especially in a setting where like if you say the wrong thing, those same people are going to see you the next day. Um, so it could be very intimidating. So I definitely get that. Thank you for sharing your story because I think the purpose of today is like giving examples to our audience and then explaining, like I mentioned earlier, and like you just mentioned, is how we dealt with those things, how we're getting better at those things, which we're going to talk more about. So, like I said, what you said makes a lot of sense. A lot of people in foster care didn't get a chance to learn a lot of social norms, which we'll also talk about, right? Like
Yes.
how to speak up for yourself, how to do that without being defensive. I think myself and Kiera actually talked about that in another episode. How to resolve conflict without escalating things. And those are skills that take years to develop, right? And once you leave the foster care system, you're often thrown into the world without those fundamental skills. I think a lot of people can agree, right? It's like a big adjustment. How did you go? My question for you is how did you go about starting to build those social skills after you aged out of foster care? What was the starting point for you?
So, to be completely honest, when I first aged out of foster care, I was in a situation where I was actually homeless for 2 weeks prior. And I feel like that was a really big moment for me. I had an amazing social worker, and actually, that social worker turned out to adopt me and is now my adoptive mother. But back then, I remember feeling like I was so isolated and I was doing everything alone, but I didn't even send her a message to tell her, like, hey, I'm homeless for 2 weeks until I get accepted into independent living.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a moment that I realized that, oh my gosh, like I am actively letting myself suffer because I feel like in foster care, we as the youth, we're always told to minimize ourselves, to
Right.
minimize our personality, what we say to people, our ideas, our thoughts, because you don't want to be moved around from home to home. And so I feel like for so much of your youth, you're growing up and it's like, who am I? What do I believe in? Do I even want to talk to this person? Like, is this person good for me? And
Right.
it's just something that you have to learn as you grow and you have to work on yourself and you really have to sit with yourself and just figure out who you are outside of life in the system.
Definitely. Thank you for sharing that. Like for our viewers, I actually did not know that about Indy, right? That she was homeless for a while, adopted by your social worker. It's my first time hearing it. It's first time for others to hear it. It's always nice to hear these real experiences. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I totally get it. Like you said, like you're suddenly expected to be familiar with everything without ever being shown how to do it. Like we talk about every episode, right? There's so many, I mean, thousands of things that we're not shown. We're just kind of like, here, figure it out, right? So like I said, yeah, I definitely get it. That's why I'm always like here smiling. I know the viewers always see me like nodding, smiling because I'm like, yep, like everything you're saying, all your experience. It's very relatable, and I hope that our viewers can see that and are like, oh, I went through that. How did you go through, like how did you deal with it? Like I need help dealing with it. And you could always reach out to iFoster, by the way. If you need
Yes.
assistance with things, please make sure you're reaching out to us. So what I wanted to mention is that one resource that we like to always mention to our viewers that really help with these kinds of things um, are our How Do I's, which are in the portal, and they're also on YouTube. So
Yes.
they're short instructional videos on everything from connecting with roommates to self-care strategies. How do you I'm trying to remember. There was one that I really liked that I wanted to mention. It'll come back to me, but they're really great. They're really great how do I's. And I think they're, along with these podcasts, like listening to a podcast and then reviewing our how do I's. And then if you have questions still, like make sure you are reaching out to us, all of our viewers. And then Indy, like how do you think tools like the how do I's could have helped you when you were starting out, or any of our tools that iFoster shares with our community.
Yeah, so actually, I am on the support team at iFoster.
Right.
I was an intern in 2022, and now I'm official team member in 2025. And I will say that actually, in my first year, I was given the project of making a how do I. And I remember being so lost because I was like, you want me to make a how do I on how to shop on a budget, but still eat healthy and take care of your health? And at the time, I was on a weight loss journey, and it felt really great to be seen because I had lost 150 pounds, and they were like, you're perfect for this. And I remember at that time going back and re-looking at every single how do I on the portal because I was like, how do they want this set up? How should I word this? And I learned so much that I didn't know. We have things like how to move into your first apartment, what necessities do you need, how to do your taxes, how to do your financial aid, just how to make friendships, how to be social. We had so many. I'm currently working on one for foster youth on how to apply for. I am blinking on the name right now. I'm so sorry.
Is it for schoolwork?
It is for schoolwork. There is a additional kind of stipend funding. You can do ETV. It is called
ETV. Okay, got
but it's ETV, and I feel like it is so important for foster youth to know about this because I just got it this year, and I am 23, so you would be eligible for it. It is until you're 26, but they provide you with, I believe it's $2,500 per semester, so you can get up to $5,000. Unfortunately, they don't do it for the summer one, but that was something that I had no idea about and how to do. And so as soon as I learned how to do it, I was like, I immediately have to share it with the rest of the world,
right.
like foster youth, because it's such an important resource. And then just seeing the how do I's remind me that there's always something constantly that we can continue to add to our portal. And I like to think about things that I didn't know to kind of just put it on there. So yes, great resource. I highly, highly suggest looking at those if you're just feeling completely like lost, not knowing where to start. That would be a great one. And also just always getting a hold of the support team. We can lead you in a certain direction, or I mean, you can email me. I'm always here.
Yeah, as you can see, Indy knows so much. She knows what's in the portal. She's the support team. Yes, reach out to support team. And then I was going to mention ETV. Make sure to, for all of our viewers, if you're watching like nationally, make sure to, check with your county. Yes. Make sure, Indy shared the experience getting the ETV, but you want to make sure that you check your county, you check the websites, make sure it's still the amount that they say for your county, and then always contact support too. And then Indy can help you like check if it's in your county, check if it's in your area still, or as things change, we got to constantly look at the website. So just make sure you're checking in with us, asking questions, making sure anything we talk about today, you're either contacting support and like, is this still available? Is this, what website can I check? That's what we're here for, right? So thank you for sharing that, Indy. So one of the toughest things for a lot of us is learning how to be vulnerable with others. We've spent so much of our lives keeping walls up, right? I think most of us would agree that like we're very closed off sometimes, depending how you grew up, right? What advice do you have for others who struggle with opening up? Like whether it's with new friends, roommates, romantic relationship, any relationship in general, right? Like what advice would you give them?
Yeah, so first of all, I do agree with you. We all, I think to an extent, have struggled with that, even non-foster kids, but especially foster youth. Mm-hmm. So I will say that for me, after the homeless situation, when I was in my first apartment in independent living, that feeling of isolation just would not let go of me. And from there, I decided that I would make the decision to make friends with people that reminded me of my biological family. Obviously, I was taken away from them for a reason, but I think as foster kids associate home, happiness, comfort with what we grew up in. So we don't really know that that's not healthy. So during that time, I went down a really rough path in my life. I chose the wrong friends. I made the wrong decisions. I did not put myself, my success, my health first. And I really regretted that. And so after that, after I decided that the best decision for me, years later, um, I decided that I was going to disconnect myself from those people. And then from there, I spent 2 years completely alone. I no friends, no biological family. My adoptive family did not decide that they were going to adopt me at that time. She had actually stopped being my social worker and had taken a break from her career. And I just remember feeling so much anger towards myself, towards the world, towards the people I had let in, that I was not willing to be vulnerable with another soul. I would not let myself have friends. I would not let myself talk to people. I remember when I would be in public, if somebody would compliment me, complete radio silence. I would never do that today. And it's so crazy to think about how when you work on certain things, just the version of yourself you are years later. I look at the past version of me as a complete stranger 9 out of 10 times. But yeah, so I think when I started my job at iFoster, I really realized that to be able to be successful in life, that's something that you have to do. And so after working with iFoster, I did learn a little bit more. I would say a lot bit more, and I can get into that later. But I don't believe that I actually truly learned how to be vulnerable until I met my best friend and my current friend, Danny. And something in me just clicked and it started to rewire my brain. For some reason, I was like, oh, someone wants to listen. Someone wants to be present in my life. Someone wants to hear my stories. Someone wants to tell me, like, you're not alone and you've got this. And even if you were, you're still an amazing person who would have it either way. And so with him, I started to slowly open myself up. We would talk about our interest, and then every once in a while, I'd be like, oh, when I was in foster care, this happened. And I would test him. And it sounds like a bad thing to say, but I do believe you should always test your friends to make sure that they are the right friend for you. But I would test his reaction on how he kind of like perceived the information of my life. And every single time, he was like, I'm so sorry you went through that, but I'm really glad that you're here today. Or I'm really glad that, you took steps. And it just made me realize that being vulnerable with someone does not just immediately equal them holding it against you or putting it in your face or just using your trauma as a way to, I guess, hold you back from your success.
Right.
And after that, I think I started to kind of explore my options with friendships and relationships. And I will say, I think the hardest one was getting into a relationship.
Right.
I remember when we first got together, there would be conflicts. We would be screaming, we'd be arguing just because of a misunderstanding or just because of a miscommunication. And also because he was doing things that triggered me. But how was he supposed to know it triggered me? He didn't know my past. And so I realized when I started to be like, I actually don't like that because of this. And he'd be like, oh, I had no idea. Like, I would never want to do anything that hurts you. It's those tiny moments when you realize that, like, being vulnerable is so important because not only does it allow other people to see you, it also allows you to feel free. Do you get what I'm meaning by that? Like, it feels like a weight's lifted off your chest because you can finally talk to someone that's not a social worker, that's not a foster parent, that's not your biological family. It's talking to someone that was outside of this situation and just knowing that it's not normal to them the way that it is to everyone else, like foster youth, social workers, foster homes.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say stuff to them, it's like, oh, same thing, same, like every single day. Like I've heard this story before. And I think people just get so immune to those feelings when you work in the system. And so you're used to being like, I just got deeply traumatized here. I need to say something to you. And then being like, oh yeah, that happens to all my kids all the time.
Right.
It was a genuine raw feeling. But with them, it was like it was their first time being brought into this part of the world, seeing it from my view. And just knowing that like other people out there genuinely do care. Not every single person is numb or burnt out by their job or burnt out by trauma.
Right.
And so it's so important to just start slow. I think it's important to realize that you need to be vulnerable with yourself first. You really need to look inside you and admit that you might have been hurt by a situation, or you might have been wronged or angered, or just all X amount of emotions, and accept that. And then I think once you accept that and realize it's okay, then from there you can slowly start to just share a little bit. It doesn't have to be a lot, but when you allow yourself to tell someone how you genuinely feel or what happened in your life, it kind of opens you up to a world of possibilities that we kind of lock ourselves behind.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I think I appreciate like you giving us a real example and then talking about how it's a growing process, right? Like
Yeah.
and it's this whole new world, like you mentioned. Like it's you're so used to people being like, or a social worker being like, yeah, or they could say I'm sorry, but it's like I'm sorry with a straight face because they hear it so often. Or family members are like, that's just life, right? Like saying stuff like that. And
Yeah.
then you learn that there's this whole other world. Like people, there's some people that don't even know what foster care is, right? Like I was surprised by that when I mentioned it to a friend. I was like, yeah, I was in foster care. They're like, oh, what's that? And I'm like, you don't know what foster care is? And it's crazy. It's this whole other world. And it's a process of being vulnerable. Yes, I agree with Indy. It's like learning how to be vulnerable with yourself, and then knowing that there are people that are willing to be supportive. And I mean, there's billions of people in this world, right? Like everyone has these insanely different experiences, and you're bound to meet amazing people along your life journey. And some of them will be not good, so good, and some of them will be like, oh wow, like the empathetic person that you always thought you needed that you've never even heard of, or someone from different state, different country. Like there's just so many people in the world, and I think it's worth you know being open and like being vulnerable and understanding that there will be people, even though it doesn't seem like it, there will be people that will accept that you're opening up to them and will like embrace it instead of push you back. And I know it feels like we're just getting pushed back our whole lives growing up, and that's why it's like you kind of want to give up, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I've been trying to do this for 18 years, 19 years. I'm already 20 years old. I still haven't met somebody who understands. Like Indy just told you, there's hope, right? Like there are amazing people out there, and it is a process, and it starts with you, and just knowing where to start, listening to people like us, listening to these kinds of podcasts, knowing that we're here to support you with resources, with things that you need, but also like share the real stuff on this type of podcast, right? Like share our real experiences. And this is for our viewers to listen to our experiences and have some hope. So thank you so much for sharing that, Indy. You talked about vulnerability. You touched a little bit about isolation, and I know we were gonna discuss like how you kind of overcame that piece. If you want to talk a little bit about that, like we talked about it earlier, that you felt isolated, but what were your steps there? Like, which you kind of mentioned right now too, but was there any specific steps that you took to feel less isolated, that you want to tell our viewers?
So I think one thing that's very important to mention is that not one size fits all.
Yeah.
So for me personally, I was in a time where that isolation made me choose the wrong people. I went down a path of being an alcoholic. I was doing substances I shouldn't have, and I was in unhealthy back-to-back friendships and relationships. So for me, the isolation for a short period of time was much needed. I remember finally choosing myself, cutting people off, deciding that like it was my turn to work on myself. So I would say that for those 2 years that I was completely alone, yes, I struggled very much with isolation. And like I said, this probably will not fit all sizes. But in that time, I realized just how important it was to find who you are outside of all of the mess. So I think after that, the steps that I took to like feeling less isolated after I figured out who I was, I started to talk to my workers. It was such a small thing, but I started to communicate with my social workers. I started to talk to my caseworkers. I started to ask about other youth that lived in the same apartment building as me that was in the independent living program. And then I started to knock on their doors. Hey, do you want to hang out? Hey, do you want to grab a bite of food? I got back in touch with some of my biological family. We started off slow. We started to go to concerts together, see each other every few weeks. And that's not something that always ends well. And I can accept that in my situation, it's not. But it was still a learning journey. And it was still something that I'm glad that I decided to do. And, to be completely honest, every single person struggles with feeling isolated and lonely in their lifetime. I think even if you have so many people around you, sometimes you can still struggle with it. And it's a normal feeling. But what's not normal is allowing yourself to sit in that and keep yourself from good opportunities, good people, and like amazing experiences. So anytime I start to think, oh, I just want to rot in my house for 2 weeks, I start to think, oh, but I could miss one of my favorite things I see in the morning. There's this old lady that rides her bike on the trail that I walk every single day. She stops to smile at me. I don't want to be sitting on that. And so when you start to look at your day-to-day life of, first thing I do in the morning is go get coffee. My barista works on these days. They're always so happy to see me. They always get my drink order right. Oh, I love this certain cafe. I go there and I read. And then everyone asks me, what book am I reading? There's so many small things that you can do, even if you're naturally a homebody, that just gets you out there and gets you connected with the rest of the world. So I would say that I'm very much a homebody. I do my college work from home. I work from home. And I love just spending time with my cats. But I do realize the importance of being social. You need people to talk to. You need a support group. You need to have someone that you can call at 3 a.m. if something happens. And so when you decide to finally take those tiny steps and get out of your comfort zone, I think you'll just realize that there's a whole world of possibilities and people waiting for you. And one of my favorite things to say is you have not met every single person that will love you. And so I don't want to keep myself from that. And I don't think anyone should keep themselves from that.
That's awesome. I like that quote. I feel like I said that earlier, but not the way you just said it. That's awesome. I was like, now there's an actual quote for it. That's awesome. And then you said it first, but like I reiterated it. But that's like the perfect way to end what we were saying, right? Like that's awesome. Yeah, I agree with you. Like it's about setting boundaries, right? It's like knowing what your own boundaries are and knowing like my boundaries are that I am a homebody, but I can open up a little bit and challenge myself to go somewhere, but not somewhere I'm going to be super uncomfortable. Exactly. Right? Like knowing those boundaries. Same thing with family, like you said, like it may not work out, right? Like, but at least you tried. And it's about saying like, I'm going to try because that's what I want for myself, but I'm also going to set a boundary. And if they cross this line, then I'm going back, right? Like I'm going to go back to not doing that, right? So definitely understand that. I have an okay relationship with my family. We see each other. I talk to my mother pretty often. She calls me a lot. But I don't really like going to their home a lot. It's like, that's my boundary. It's like, yeah, I can talk to you on the phone. We do really well on the phone. But I feel too nervous in the home, right? I feel too nervous. And that's okay to tell people that, like saying, hey, I like talking to you. I have a good time on the phone. I like sharing what, our day-to-day things, what's going on in our day. But I'll only go to your house on these days. Or if I'm not feeling well, like a whole month, I'm not going to go to your house for that whole month, right? It's like boundaries. And people who love you and respect you will be like, okay, yeah, whatever you need, right? That makes sense. And that's healthy. And that's beautiful. So thank you for sharing that. I want to move over to talking a little bit about conflict resolution. We keep sprinkling in there already, which is awesome. So I also want to just focus on that, and then ask you, like, what's your, or how do you approach conflict now? Like, whether it's with friends, coworkers, roommates, like, what's changed in the way you handle disagreements compared to when you first left the system? And I think that's really important for our viewers. And we talked about this a little bit, right, Indy? Like, we want to advocate for yourselves. Like, we want our viewers to know that it's important to advocate, but there's also the importance in how you advocate, and understanding how to approach conflict and get to a resolution, which is, like, problem solving. Like, how do you get to the result that you want, right? So, Indy, if you can talk a little bit about that.
Okay, so when I first left the system at 18, I was not good at all at handling any type of conflict. I would say that was the same for my whole teenhood, as well as the first few years of my adulthood. And people may agree or disagree with me on this, but I think as foster kids, we are so used to being overtalked, never being heard, never being listened to, no one ever showing care, that it turns into anger. But underneath all of that, it is just hurt. And so it gets to a point where it's like, you don't want to listen to me, I'm going to make you have to hear me.
Right.
I think my go-to was I always got very irritable very quick. I was quick to snap. I was quick to like put people in their places, I guess. That's what I would say as a teenager.
Yeah.
But I was not scared to start a verbal or physical fight, which is so insane to me now. Once again, throwback to what I said earlier. I'm just such a different person.
Right.
But I'll touch on this a little bit later, but I think the main way that I was able to fix that was getting help for my mental health. So I got diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, which a lot of foster youth have, unfortunately. And so with that, your emotions are always on 100. You never feel anything in the middle. And so for me, it wasn't anger, it was like rage out. And so I remember a certain time specifically, I had just gotten such a heated argument with a family member that it just turned just very, very aggressive, hurtful words, just things that we did not mean to each other. I was uninvited from his wedding. Like, it was just such a mess. And I remember being like, gosh, like, I can't treat everybody like this for the rest of my life. I'm not going to have a single person who cares. And so that was the moment. Sorry, my cat. Could you hear that?
No, it's okay. I didn't hear it.
Sorry. And so after I realized that that's not how I wanted to spend the rest of my life, that's not how I wanted to treat people, because deep down I know that I'm a very kind and empathetic person. I only want good for people. In fact, I am often compared to the giving tree. But I wasn't always like that. And it took time for me to be like, people don't deserve to be talked like this if we have different opinions. They don't deserve to be talked like this, even if they were mean to me first. And so how I decided to do that was after I got diagnosed with BPD, I started journaling a lot. Anytime I felt like I was going to blow up or I just did not want to talk to that person, I would isolate, because I did think it was the best for me, and I would just journal every single angry thought. And then eventually it got to a point where I didn't really have these angry thoughts anymore, because I would write that stuff down and then I would take a breath and then I'd be like, okay, but here are some positives. Here are some good things about this person. They're not just this situation. It's not just this. And so I think after doing that for so long, I was able to kind of find inner peace and inner calm. And also, I think the biggest thing is just realizing you don't have to be there. If someone is triggering you or doing something to that much of an extreme, you can choose your self-peace and you can decide, I don't want to be your friend anymore. I want to be no contact. Or if it's at a workplace, I'm going to ask my case manager or my supervisor if they'll change me to a different shift, or if they'll separate us and we don't have to work together. There's just so many steps you can take to protect that inner peace and not get yourself that riled up to the point where you're just becoming someone you don't want to be. And so, yeah, I would definitely say that journaling, meditating, talking to a therapist, breathing, being grateful, and reminding myself that there's good in people It's definitely what helped me. I don't even feel like I've gotten angry in the past 6 months, probably, because something happens and I'm just like, oh, okay, I'll write about it later. Like, it's fine.
That's actually a great idea. I'm like, maybe I should do that. Like whenever I feel, I used to actually really like journaling before. I would do it like my whole childhood. So I love journaling. I just feel like I don't have time now. But if I'm using it for, as an example, that you use it, which is like every time you feel angry or feel like you need to release something, like get something out and on paper, and it gives you more time to like process it, right? Instead of like reacting right away. So as I was saying, yes, like I can definitely see how that helps. So thank you for sharing those important skills. Like I think all of the little things matter. It's like whatever works for you, right? Journaling might not be your thing. It's just one of the tips, right? Like it's something that Indy found helpful, something that I found helpful when I would do when I was younger. So something to try. You know, sometimes you're at a point where it's like, okay, everything I've tried has not worked. The journaling thing has always sounded silly to me. I don't want to do it. You may say that to yourself, right? But if nothing else has worked, why not try it, right? So thank you for sharing that. They're very important skills that I think a lot of people should develop, you know, learning how to breathe, take a breath, not approaching a situation head on or right when it happened, understanding, you know, giving room, giving yourself space to approach some conflict, not just like acting on anger or acting right away, like give yourself some time to speak. And it's not just for the other person, right? It's like for yourself.
Yes.
Like even if you're thinking, no, this person deserves me going over there and letting them know that what they did is wrong and I should yell at them and like it's not about them, right? Maybe they do deserve that, maybe they don't, but it's about you. It's what's healthy for you. It's about making sure you do get your point across the way that you want to, and you might not be able to do that in the heat of the moment. So it's just, you know, practicing these things, and it is about, you know, helping yourself first so that you're able to maintain relationships and learn how to have boundaries and cut out people who you do need to cut out. So thank you for sharing that, Indy. Like I said, these are important skills to develop in our personal lives, professionally as well. Do you have any stories on struggles to communicate in the workplace, or like a time when communication skills that you developed were helpful in your job? I think you mentioned something briefly, right? That you, oh no, you just gave a tip. You said that you could be moved shift hours, right? But do you have a specific example?
So before I worked at iFoster, I worked a lot of odd jobs, I would say, just to kind of keep myself afloat. Sorry.
No worries. You're fine.
But I would say that I worked at a specific company. Don't want to drop names, but I had a lot of different coworkers there. No, like one size fits all.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like we would be working and they would say certain things that would just rub me the wrong way. And I just didn't really know how to advocate for myself. That's really what it boiled down to. How to go to a manager or supervisor and be like, this was not okay. This crossed so many boundaries and so many lines. So instead, I could never keep a job because I was like, I was so scared of stepping on someone's toes. And so there was this specific situation where this very sweet girl with different views than I had, she invited me to come over after work and hang out with her friends. And I was like, you know what? I will give everything one try. While I was there, it was just a very uncomfortable situation for me. I feel like the conversation more relied on me changing my beliefs or how people perceive me based on my appearance and why I should change it. And that was really, I guess, the first moment for me where I was like, stood up and I left. I didn't force myself to be there. I didn't force myself to listen. And then I managed my supervisor and I was like, we will never work the same shifts again if you want me to continue to be on the team. I mean, more professionally, but I got the point across and I advocated. But I will say that even then, After that situation, I couldn't do it because I was so scared and within myself. And I was like, if I crossed too many lines, they're going to fire me or they're not going to care. And so I remember my first year as an intern, I switched over to two different supervisors. And then from there, I was given the opportunity to interview and to work for the support team. And I was accepted and I'm still on it. And I love my team. I love my supervisor. But I remember before she was my official supervisor, she would email my current one and she'd be like, Indy's so great. She does her work on time. She does so well with this. She won't talk to me though. She won't communicate with me at all. She won't tell me what's going on. And so when I got that news back, I remember being like, but that's not what you do. Like, why would you want to hear about my personal problems? Why would you want to hear what my opinion is?
Mhm.
And I think that's why iFoster gave me so much of my personality and my spark back, because I remember I would go into these meetings and I still do. I would go in there and I would be like, I would open up slowly and I'd be like, this is happening. And immediately she'd be like, yeah, that's not okay. Let me work on this. Or I'd be like, oh, this situation I'm in is just, it's so horrible. And my supervisor would be like, yeah, that's not good. Let me look into resources for you to help you out. And going back to the vulnerability thing, so many people will jump so high to be able to provide helpful resources to you due to this. And so I think when we had some problems on our iFoster team, just with either interns or past things, I remember at first being too scared and then just finally being like, hey, I want you to work on this. Hey, your work's great. You need to add X, Y, and Z. And I
Right.
think that realizing that I should do that and I should be more upfront with conflict and not be like, oh, you're doing a great job, when in all reality, there's so much they need to work on. I was actually holding people back from their own capabilities.
Right.
Like, me not telling you how you can improve is me not being a good support system. It's not being a good friend. It's not being just being there actively. And so I realized that the only way to do it is patiently, politely. And if you're not going to give advice or information on how to help, then you don't say anything at all, because everything that you share with people should always be from a place of support, kindness, or genuine, like, interest in wanting them to improve.
Right.
Answer it correctly.
No, yeah, I agree. No, that makes total sense. And I like that you kind of gave both perspectives. So like you in your previous job, in your current job, and also not only as an employee, but like an overseer of other interns, right?
Yes.
Like you're saying as an employee, it's important to speak up, when you need to, and there might be help where you didn't expect it, right? And then also as an overseer, you're like, you need to tell the people you're working with what they might not be doing wrong so they could improve, as long as you do it in a polite, appropriate, but like kind of strong worded at the same time, right? Like it's like, you are their overseer and there's perfectly respectful ways to be like, hey, this is what you need to work on and I'll help you work on it, right? Like I think there's so much respect in that, and like amazing that you gave like all those examples in one example. I was like, oh, that's awesome. Like you overseer and as an employee, your experience with your supervisor as well. So it's all great. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to mention that, your suggestions are great. And then also, I've mentioned this in a previous episode as well, but iFoster actually has an award-winning jobs program where we train former foster youth in developing these skills and connect them to paid internships where they can put them into practice, put these communication skills into practice, and earn certifications that will help them with future careers, right? If you're listening and that sounds like something you're interested in, reach out to support, reach out to Indy, reach out to support team. We'll get you connected. Again, we're always updating stuff. We'll let you know where we're at, if we're still taking people. So just make sure you're connecting with support team to know what the updates are, what we're doing right now. But yes, we did. I think that program won back in 2019. Really great program. So if you're interested, make sure you contact us. Before we wrap up, I wanted to talk about one more section, which is mental health, right? It's something that correlates with what we've already been talking about. It's something that a lot of people ignore, especially when dealing with all of these challenges, right? How, um, you know, there's a lot of correlation between mental health and communicating skills. So I wanted to ask you, Indy, how did you take care of your mental health while navigating um, this transition from like foster youth to not foster youth, but like what's the word I'm looking for? Not foster youth, like young person, young
Young
like young
adult.
mindset
Yeah.
into adulthood. Like, how was that transition? Because we're growing through all that. We're going through other transitions, which is being in foster care to not being in foster care, not working to working. So how was that? How did you take care of your mental health during all of that?
So, to be completely honest, taking care of my mental health was not something I started to practice. I want to say until I actually got my job as an intern with iFoster in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
There were multiple instances during my time as a youth and even my time as an adult where I did experience harmful behaviors. And so that was not something that I ever put much thought into. And I think it's because my self view was so low, um, just based on all of the things that we were told as foster kids. Once again, it goes back to like when you were put out into the real world. I remember that I was like, oh, which version of myself do I need to be? Because I remember in each foster home, you became a different version to best fit like their wants in a child, to be able to not be moved. I will say that like my favorite people in the world I consider to be my siblings were not blood related. I was in a foster home with them. And so the genuine fear of being moved from them was really scary. So when I first got out of foster care and I transferred into independent living, like I said previously, I decided to block out the mental health issues that needed to direly be worked on with substance abuse and poor friends. And I want to say that around that time is when I had my first very, very serious attempt. And thankfully, my last very seriously attempt. I remember I was in the ICU for quite a bit of months, and then I had a lot of mental and physical health troubles over that. But I think it was when I woke up that day, it was a new feeling for me. I think it finally hit my brain. Why don't I just try again? But not ending it, starting it. Why don't I just try again? And that's when I really was like, I need to go to therapy. I need to actually put effort into this. And it was an unhealthy thinking thing back then, but I was like, if this last time of me actually trying does not work, then I will accept my fate, which never do that. You should always just keep trying and trying.
Right.
But that was my point of view from then. And so I went to a therapist very quickly, and I took it seriously. I did EDMR therapy. I did cognitive behavioral therapy. I was like, we're getting down to this. I accept it. I finally accepted my diagnosis. I started doing medication management, and that was especially hard for me. And I think if there's another foster child or young adult or anyone who's listening to this, I know just how scary it can be to be diagnosed with a mental health issue that your parents or someone else that you have, like that you know has. So when I got diagnosed with bipolar disorder, I rejected it entirely because that was something that my biological father had, and he was not a good role model and he was not a good person. And so that led to me being in a stagnant mode of not being able to work. And so the biggest thing is like, dang, that sucks. Mourn it for a little bit. You can mourn the old version of yourself, but then you've got to get up and you have to be like, well, this is never going to change. This is a lifelong thing. What can I do? And that's when I was like, I'm going to keep talking to my therapist. I'm going to journal. I'm going to get on the right medication. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to eat right. I'm going to surround myself with love and support. I'm going to make sure my job suits me. I'm going to make sure I choose the right career. And I was so moved by my progress, just like how far I've come in the last few years, that I actually was like, my career is solely going to be based on helping people. And so currently in college to become a therapist. Yeah, thank you. I just want everyone to know that you don't have to stay the same. You have the decision as to right now or tomorrow or 10 years from now to just get up and be like, this isn't for me anymore. This doesn't serve me. I don't need this. And leave. And it could be so hard and devastating at first, but like, you sound so cheesy. You only live once. And so you need to make the most out of it. I know that our younger years was not good. And I'm not saying that does not have a lasting impression, because it does. And that's why I think it's so important to, once again, be vulnerable, have a support group, maintain good social skills so you're never in a situation where you don't have someone to talk to, and just get help. Like, yeah, decide. And the best way for you, maybe it's not a therapist, maybe that's not the way that you want to go. Do you have a really good friend you can talk to? For me, I think I read Mary Oliver. I don't know if you know who that is.
No, I don't.
She is one of my favorite poets. And I think when you're in a bad mental health space, for me as someone that struggles with depression really hard, I think if you just choose to ingest some good. So for me, I know like, oh, I'm having like an episode where I'm exhausted. I don't want to do something. I know in that time, my needs are like, I need to stop doom scrolling on social media. I think I need to take a break from just the world issues and politic issues, just because sometimes that can feel very heavy. And I'm light and love. So then I'll force myself to sit out in sun. I'll take a Mary Oliver book with me, and she just speaks about love and passion and nature and like just finding the beauty in things. And so I think when you ingest good, like just good, you can give out more good, and like your soul feels happier. So mental health is very, very important. I want that to be known. We're both here for you. All of iFoster is here for you. If you don't want to go a certain route, or you don't want to delve too much into what's going on, that's okay. Just send me an email. I can just check on you every single day. I can just be a support. You can just call my work number. Like, I just want everyone to truly know that you are not alone. It does get better. You just, you really need to make sure you allow yourself to get better, and make sure that you accept that your past was not your fault. There's nothing that you could have done as a child to change what happened to you. But moving forward into your adulthood, your life is in your hands, and that can be so scary, but gosh, it's so exciting. So, be excited. And yeah, I think that would be my views on it.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I agree with that so much. Like, I think you'll always see in these podcasts is that I'm always smiley, like everyone's pretty smiley. We try to have so much fun. And it's because what Indy said, our life is in our hands now, and we choose to use our experiences to share with others and make sure they know that there's mental health resources. And we actually know, right? Like, we've all been there. Like a lot of us and the other guests that I've had on these shows, we've experienced triggers, trauma, and all of these things, right? But we chose to grow, to understand that it wasn't our fault, like Andy said, and knowing that there are mental health resources. And that sounds so intimidating, right? Because like mental health was so taboo back in the day. I think now it's getting more acceptable, right? Like people actually talk about it now. And like Indy said, it's not, if therapy's not for you, then it's not therapy. If it's this podcast, then listen to this podcast. Mm-hmm. If it is scrolling a little bit on social media, that wasn't like for Indy, that was something that she was like, okay, I need to take a break, right? For some people, it's like, I need to take a break from this and I need to scroll a little bit, right? Or watch a movie or whatever the case is. Like, everyone's different, and you just have to find your approach, your happiness, your calm moment. Like, we're here to tell you that you can get through it. We got through it. I know we're smiling, especially me. Sorry, like I smile But I'm like always smiling, but trust me, I've been there. I can definitely relate with Indy. I'm just a very smiley person. I really embrace like the idea of getting a hold of my own life and then just making like it the best that I can now that I am in control. So that's why I'm very smiley. If you're wondering why I'm really smiley, I totally embrace that, and I love life now because I'm in control of it. If I mess up somewhere, it's my own fault, nobody else's, and there's peace in that. There's like peace in like, things are not going well right now, but at least it's because of me and I can fix it. Where when we were younger, it's like things are not going well and I cannot do anything about it because I'm a child, right? So it's important to see that like what went on before was not your fault. Um, it's multiple reasons why everybody's experience or why they went into foster care is different, but now you're in control as an adult. If you're listening to this, you're an adult, or even if a child is listening to this, a teenager, and you're still, wondering, we're here to tell you, like, it's going to be okay. I know you hear that a lot, right? We're not like other people where we're just like trying to tell you, yeah, just go through it, you'll be okay. No, we're here to tell you, like, we went through it and it really is going to be okay, but we're not sugarcoating it for you. It's going to be okay because you're going to make it okay. You're going to take the steps. You have the support from iFoster. You have the, if not if not from us, but if not from other people that you want it from, you make your own support. You find your people, right? We're here to tell you it's all going to be okay. And yeah, like life gets better. Life, it's, and thank you, Indy, for sharing that and being vulnerable, and really giving, our viewers an image of like, what that looks like for each person, what that looks like for former foster youth. So I very much appreciate you sharing that. So thank you so much. I did want to touch on, you talked about politics, and I think we missed it earlier, by the way, but I'm gonna it's okay, I'm gonna bring it back in. You were saying that sometimes you need to take a break from politics, but going back to what we were talking about earlier, I did want to mention, and it reminded me that I was going to ask you this. You mentioned, sorry, my dog.
Okay, my cat was screaming a few minutes.
Let me check the door. I think somebody's at the door. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so thank you, everyone. There was just a package at my door, so that's why my dog was barking. So just last thing before we leave, this goes back to the workplace, and just wanted to mention this really quick because it was very important to Indy and I. I wanted to talk about how to approach politics in the workplace, right? We wanted to briefly talk about, Indy wants to talk about the experience she has had with politics in the workplace and how it was dealt with in that situation. So yeah, Indy, if you wouldn't mind, like, just sharing what that experience was like, and I think that should be the last thing. We wanted to make sure we touch on it.
Yes. So first of all, I think it is very, very important to know where your morals lie, where your ideas lie, your opinions lie, whether it's on any side of the spectrum. That's okay. It's valid. But there should always be self-awareness about politics. I feel like when you work in a job environment, you should always know what is going to affect your job, your personal life. But there should still be a respect and mutual understanding that not everybody has the same opinions as you, and sometimes it's not professional to speak about it in public places, just because you need to be mindful of that stuff. And so I think for us personally, I have learned some things about politics here recently that I feel like foster children should know, no matter what side you are on. If you are a foster child, there has been a lot of new policies put into place that might affect your Medicaid or might affect your schooling, just situations like that. Funding's cut, sorry. funding cuts,
Yeah.
nonprofits that you might be able to get help for. So there might be a lot less resources for you right now, and that might be how it feels. But as at iFoster, we are always trying to keep up to date with what's still open, who we can partner with, how to get resources to you, even if you're in the middle of nowhere in Ohio. We are trying to find resources for you. But yes, I believe that it is very important to keep up on what's going around in the world, or like what's going on in the world around you, on policies that might affect you. You just should always stay updated, even if it doesn't affect you. I think it's just good to have a knowledge. Um, Going back to what I said very earlier, I grew up in a very small town as a foster child that did not have access to technology for a very long time. So I didn't know why these were so important. I didn't know why the people around me were so passionate about it. And then when I started to understand, I understood the passion. I would say that the most important thing is to make that you are actively doing correct research. I feel like sometimes we just scroll past an article or scroll past a video and it like registers in our brain, but we don't know if that's factual or not. Like we should always be double checking everything. And once again, no matter where your opinion lies on politics, I feel like it is always so important to make sure that you are correct, that you are kind, and that you are understanding. And sometimes you just need to agree to disagree, and that's okay. In my personal opinion, I feel like the country has been divided for a very long time, and that's not how it should be. We should be united. So, whether your opinion is different or not, you are always welcome at iFoster, and you are always heard here. That's not something that we will ever press onto you or try to make you do anything that you don't feel comfortable with. But yes, please keep up to date on things that might affect you personally. Please look at the new Medicaid requirements that's going to be hitting in the next few 2027, I believe. We'll have to double check, and just so you know, you might hear something tomorrow and then it might be different the next day.
Right.
Things are constantly changing. So just know that like you should always be checking on deadlines on what's going on. Keep in mind, like for me personally, I did not know what a government shutdown was. So just knowing what that is, knowing how it affects you, like it affects you in minimal ways. Like when you go to the airport, there might not be enough workers there and you might not understand why. I think just keeping a general knowledge about the world around you, what's going on, it's just very, very helpful. It helps you plan for your future. Like, just as a general, like we have tariffs now. You need to rebudget how much money you're going to save each like month for food now.
Right.
Just being aware will help you so much in the long run. But once again, sometimes you do need to take a step back, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Regard it to your own comfortability, and once again, just know that no matter what's going on in the world, iFoster is here for you. We do support you, and just know that you are so loved no matter what.
Yes, thank you. You said it perfectly. I'm like, I don't even need to add anything to that. Yeah, you said it perfectly. Like we're here to support you. We're here to support our community. You're, what political ideas you have or anything like none of that will affect how we're trying to help our community, will affect how we try to help you and get you the things you need, right? So reach out to support team, reach out to Indy. Indy said perfectly. Thank you so much for sharing your story, Indy. I know your experiences will resonate with so many of our listeners. I know they resonated with me. So again, thank you so much for being open, for being vulnerable, for sharing sharing everything you shared today. I really, really do appreciate it. To everyone listening, if you're struggling with building social skills, whether it's communication, conflict resolution, or vulnerability, just remember that they're called skills for a reason, right? There's things that you build on. You don't just have them, right? Skills take time and practice to develop, as Indy mentioned in most of her examples. Just take it one step at a time. And if you need resources or support, please reach out to us at iFoster. Thanks again for joining us on Life After Foster Care. And remember, if you have a topic idea or a question, make sure to go to the description in this video. There will be a link for you to ask your own questions. But until then, we'll see you next time. And thank you so much again, Indy, for joining me today.
Yeah, of course. I'm happy to see what else the podcast puts out, and I will be an active watcher.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.